Welcome back to ThinkTech Hawaii, Alia Mashtas and Martin Despang's Urban Transcendence Show. This is the second piece of our B Home series, B standing for Bavaria, being that state in the very south of me, your host, Martin Despang's home country. So last time we showed you the office home, and today we're going to show you the S home. S stands for Schlüpmann, who is the client of and user occupant of this home we're going to show you today. And the other part of the owner is Ms. Schlüpmann's partner, husband, Lorenz Schmidt, and their children. Isabel is the business partner of my sister Cynthia Despang, all of us comprised in Despang Architekten. Today we're going to show you this home, and we're going to relate to Hawaii as we're once again in a very nice setting here, very heavily wooded, forested area, a little forest here right next to us. When conceptualizing this home, we're taking a slightly different approach, yet somehow related to the office home. And that's, I think, we're here in a climate that's tempered. Once again, to remind us, 60% of the world climates are tempered, 40% are, like in our islands of Hawaii, tropical. Us at UH School of Architecture, we educate our students in a global and a universal way, that we make them understand the principles of bio-climatic design, which then they can apply once they understood the principles and the methodology behind. They can apply to the different climates which inspire and inform cultures all over the world. So here we continue to be in temperate climates, so we're dealing with cold winters and warm summers, whereas in Hawaii we got the same temperature basically year-round, very little fluctuation, which leads to roof architecture in the tropics to protect you from the rain and the sun, where it's here it's wall architecture. So you have a threshold that wraps around you, that in the wintertime keeps you warm and in the summertime keeps you cool. So here in this area here of wood, you can see the back of the house, which we never considered to be the back of the house. Each orientation informs the elevation in a bioclimatic way. So we're looking here at the north facade. The north facade hardly ever gets sun. As you can see here, it's around noonish, so this facade is in the shade. Also in the wintertime, this facade will never get the sun, so we prefer to keep these facades, the north facades in this climate, rather closed, as to keep the cold winter winds away from it and leave the least possible exposure that could cool down the house. In the tropics, it's the opposite. The north facade is sort of a very welcomed facade because of the same reason. The sun is not hitting it, so it always stays cool. So you would in fact open your house towards the north. In Hawaii, the northeast trade winds. Again, here the cold Arctic winds that you want to protect yourself. So from here we're going to continue to walk around the building to give you an understanding about the concept and basically the orientation of the building, because one of the keys of bioclimatic designs, or the main strategy, is orientation. Here one of the most leading systems in energy efficiency comes from Germany. It's called the passive house, and the four components of a passive house in this order and hierarchy are orientation, insulation, airtightness, and heat recovery. We get to the three later ones once we move on, but here already when we walk around the building we make you understand and discuss with us the very, very crucial aspect of orientation in bioclimatic building design. So let's move on. So we have moved around the building here. We're now on the east facade, on the east elevation. You can see the sun is out. is hitting me. I'm sweating. So for that reason, a couple of hours ago, the sun was even more towards the east and lower. So in the summer, that means a lot of solar exposure, which both in Hawaii and here, you want to try to avoid. So in both cases, as the H home, the Hawaiian home, and this S home here have decided to keep these facades rather closed. And here, where you would welcome that solar gain in the winter, the sun hardly comes around in the winter because the sun angle is very low. So it's also not very attractive to open it up during the winter, which is different to the west side, which we're going to show you when we keep on walking around the building. Another thing that the H home, the Hawaii home, that if you want to go back and revisit at the very beginning or the initiation of the show that we replayed 2 weeks ago or a week ago, we talked about the Hawaiian home, a proposal that the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, School of Architecture, Building Industry Association worked on together as a proposal for an alternative way of living on the islands of Hawaii, which we call H home. So what they share is that we keep the facades closed to the west and the east. Here the east side in both cases is basically covered with a rain screen made of thermally modified timber that some shows ago we had a couple of sessions about that innovative treatment of wood, which is a proposal for the islands of Hawaii to rejuvenate the culture of the rich culture of wood on the islands of Hawaii. In both cases basically clad, in both cases insulated, because even though the wood boards keep the sun away from the building, the wood will heat up. So in order to protect the inside of the building, in both cases we propose to have insulation behind. That insulation here, in addition to the situation and condition in Hawaii, is going to also keep the building warm in the winter, which we don't have the problem in Hawaii. So this east facade, as the way to approach the building, is actually the entrance of the building. So you see that little opening in the facade, which is besides that little window on the top floor, the only opening, again, keeping the building basically cool over the summer. So we will continue to walk around the building. I'm now sitting in front of the very, very sunny southern side, southern exposure of the S home. Here again, the opposite to Hawaii, you want to open yourself to the south, and because you want to let in the warm summer sun that comes in from a pretty low angle, and this is why this facade here has a pretty significant percentage of openings which are double glazed and actually triple pane glazed here to keep the heat that you gained inside. Also, there's some shadings, integrated vertical louvers. They're operable. Now they're up, lifted up, so you can better see the glass in here. So we bring these down to avoid the summer sun, which we're having now, to basically heat up the building. Also in front, you see a pool. The pool is a leisure feature, as it is for many in Hawaii. It's a rather small pool here to keep the amount of the body of water you need here. It's an area where it rains a lot, so the water for the pool is actually harvested on site. Climatically, bioclimatically, we talk about Hawaii about microclimates. Not only do we have 12 to 14 climates in the world exist in Hawaii, but also around the building. Dean Sakamoto is always very particular about pointing out that around the building you have climate zones. So, you know, the north facades will start at the east and the west, They're very, very different, and if we're sensitive and sensible enough to treat them differently, we can create rather harmonious and bioclimatically upgraded buildings. So here that pool, besides being fun for the family, we're talking about the Keiki. Isabel and Lawrence have 2 children, young age, and they love this pool here for playing around. At the same time, this pool here, this body of water, helps cooling the southern facade because it creates evaporative cooling. So water evaporates, and by doing that, it makes the air in front of the southern facade cooler and helps to cool, if not cool the building because the building is insulated, but it helps to cool the climate in front of the building, so it's much more tolerable and appropriate and good to sit here over the summer and enjoy. So from here you can already see indicated the corner of the building is carved out, sort of excavated out of the solid mass of the building. So we're going to check that out, what that is for. So we're now at the southwest corner of the building. We just came from the south side, and the same theme of maximize larger openings continues on the west side. The west side, as we started the show, is this little forest here, and here actually of deciduous trees. It's a difference to Hawaii, where basically the trees are green all year round. In temperate climates, because of the seasons, they get rid of the leaves in the winter time. So here, when the trees are naked, the western sun, which is very low in the winter, but still strong enough to create a lot of solar gain, can basically help heating the building. So over the turn of the day, like starting when the sun comes up in the morning until the very afternoon, when the sun is out in the winter, the sun will do what it does right now. It's coming up. Now it's summer, it's hot, so it's not welcome now. In the winter it's very welcome because it's going to help to bioclimatically, passive solarly heat the building. In the summer condition, again, there's shades incorporated that we bring down, and the corner that we indicated here you can see is being in the shade as well. So the shadow created by carving out the volume strategically, geometrically, volumetrically at this corner here is also going to help to sort of naturally cool the glass that is in the corner of the building here. So that gives you a little idea how each facade is treated accordingly to the circumstances, the background, the conditions of the orientation relative to the climate we're having here. So with that, we're going to move on to the interior of the building. So I think the best way to explain to you the interior of the house is this setting here, which is representative for the substance of the house. And actually the way we conceive architecture is being substantial, and its substance represents its surface and never the other way around. So this building here was actually finished after the B home, the office home, which we showed you previously in the previous show. So it sort of took some of the things we learned from the office home and incorporated it here. Both homes are actually pretty close to each other, so they want to try to maximize the valuable land on this lot here. There's actually a couple of other houses that Cynthia and Isabel have been conceptualizing as developers. So it's about densification of rare land, which is very important, as in Hawaii, sort of densification is a major strategy to protect sprawl. So you want to get as much out of a property as you can. So here, given all the conditions about orientations I explained to you from the outside, there is a reciprocity between the exterior and the interior. And again, all comes from substance here. So substance means in a temperate climate, well-being, human comfort. As in Hawaii, you have a roof that protects you from the rain and the sun. You let the breeze go through. Whereas here in the wintertime, you have to put your heavy coat on. So the heavy coat is basically a wrapper of insulation. But recent years, we found out that insulation alone might not do it, because once you gain the solar gain, so free energy, heating energy from the sun, you might be well advised to keep that energy and store it in the building. And you can store that as thermal mass. And thermal mass is what these concrete walls here basically are. This is poured in place, board form concrete, that if I put my hand here, we're now in mid-July, we probably had like 90 degrees outside, you saw me sweating. I'm putting my hand here to the concrete wall, and it's probably somewhere in the lower 50s. So it's able, with a large delay, a lag time, to store energy that you basically, when it gets cooler outside here, which is another difference to Hawaii, you flush the cooler night air through the building and get this building mass cool down, which then gets you over the next day of heat outside. And this concrete here, which is left raw and exposed the way it is, as we believe is the best way to do, it's then complemented and contrasted through the wood. The wood also is here no cladding, it's the structure of the house that we left exposed. This here is a glulam beam, and this here is a solid wood ceiling, what we call cross-laminated timber, that you already learned about from the office home. So it's basically like thick plywood where you laminate the layers in a crisscross way, so you get a very structural integer, stable plane that, again, the benefit is already provides you, if you like it, and we do a lot, the finish, so the rawness of the system, of the element, if accepted, can already be your finished ceiling. So this house also, like all our other projects, are very, very much relying and using prefabrication as a strategy for efficiency and effectiveness. So all this here, especially the wood, has been prefabricated off-site in a shop and assembled here in a few days. But different with a concrete here, where the office home decided to go with prefabricated concrete here. Here we experimented with poured-in-place concrete, and we used the wood that the wood people, the wood contractors, use for their wood as for the board form here. What you see to the sides here is what we call framed views. So we position the openings, the perforations, in the threshold and the facade according to climate, but as important and in relation to that, according to views. So these framed views here are literally frames, like picture frames, and what they frame is the beautiful setting around here, the forest, the nature, the trees. So you get this wonderful balance, which is very sensual, between the built environment and the natural environment outside. And you look into the wood, and you work with wood on the inside, so there's a great dialogue, which creates a great harmony, we believe. So we continue to walk around. The next position in the house is going to be the Keiki Place in space. So this is a very important part of the house here. This is the realm of the Keiki. So the clients have 2 children, and when we talk about the house, about orientation, insulation, airtightness, all of that, prior to that, very important is location. And this house here is situated in a rural setting, but the rural setting has a town center, mature town center that has all the commercial, social infrastructure. There's a bus system around here. There's actually, within walking distance, even better, a train system here that commutes actually directly into the big city Munich here. So you have everything basically you need in a community that you have in a city, but you here out in the countryside in a beautiful setting that's wonderful for the Keiki to sort of exemplify the sort of reconnection to nature, which some sociologists and scientists says is very important, sort of to reconnect to nature and to develop a natural attitude towards all the elements. And so that's important here. As you can see, we got the same nice framed views that the parents have here in the Keiki realm, but maybe even a little better because we're facing west and we're facing south here. So the daylight efficiency is way better here than in the parents' bedroom, where basically it makes sense because that's where you sleep, so you don't need as much daylight as in here, where this is sort of the sleep play space here that wants to be daylit pretty intensively, conserving energy on one hand, but on the other hand again having the children, even if they're inside of the building, they can play as if they would be outside, and that's what the house basically supports. Again, coming back to materiality, this almost feels like a house in the forest, like a tree house, because this natural cocooning of the cross-laminated timber sort of is in balance and sort of in choreography with the natural environment of the forest outside. So with that, we're going to leave this upper floor here, which again is themed by the idea of nestling in the woods, the treehouse kind of idea materialized. And while walking out, I'm going to demonstrate to you how this little integrated technology of integrated shading works, which are very delicately and cleverly integrated into the facade. And it's actually just one button push to let them bring down, which again, this house is incorporating passive strategies. That's what it's based upon. But then it's using and welcoming and incorporating active technologies where appropriate. This little shading system here is powered by 1 square foot of photovoltaics on the roof only. So again, it's a renewable energy driven, but since the problem of production and recycling of active systems has yet to be optimized, we're kind of using this here very, very sparsely and basing the house primarily on passive systems. Even when the shades are down, as you can see, there's still significant enough daylight efficiency in here. All right, so let's say goodbye to the upper floor and move on to the ground floor. I've spontaneously decided on my way down to make a stop in the bathroom, not literally speaking, but figuratively. This is the upstairs bathroom here, which employs the same principles of frame views. These are the two windows, actually one window slit above the entrance door on the east facade where the neighbors are. So the windows are just, big enough or small enough to allow the right amount of daylight into the building, not having the space trapped because you create humidity here through taking a shower. And so you can open the windows and naturally ventilate the room. Also, the surfaces that were left exposed and untreated are important because wood has the ability to absorb humidity and to give it back into the indoor air quality because we need a certain amount of humidity. So it's a very good regulator of humidity, which is a major aspect of human comfort in the buildings. When you're taking your bath in the bathtub, you actually, while being reclined in the bathtub, the window is positioned in a way that you have a beautiful view towards the sky, and if it's in the evening or at night, looking at the stars. So again, a very strategic placement of the openings, the perforations in the facade, a main element in the building design. Now we walk downstairs. Promise. So we walk down these stairs in the back to come down to the main ground floor of the building. And as you started through walking around the building and being inside of the building, I think it became clear that for us, dwelling, and actually that's a universal thing because human beings basically are the same everywhere in the world, just the conditions are different, the social and climatic conditions. But everywhere in the world, dwelling is always about the fine-tuning and the balance between the private and the public. And public means relative to the social environment around us, but also relative to Ohana, and private as well. So it's about that space and placemaking can sort of enhance well-being as the art of social coordination and collaboration. So here we already showed you that the building works with these framed views and these openings, which are strategic, informed by the two S factors. One is solar, because we live in the 21st century, and one different to the 20th century, where we used the not renewable energies of the world to power our buildings. In the 21st century, we want to go back to the pre-fossil era in using nothing but natural elements to condition our human comfort in the buildings. So here the openings, the facade cutouts in the enclosure are relative to that, but at the same time they're relative to the social factors of what do we want to see and what we don't want to see, and where we want to be seen and where we don't want to be seen. So the house, sort of in synergy of that, closes off to the east entrance facade and the north, which is also where the neighbors are. In return, the neighbors get a nice sort of sculptural, almost like a canvas-like facade out of heat-treated wood that, as you might have recognized, is applied in sort of a random way, so different boards of different width are composed by the woodworker in an artistic way. Whereas the building then opens towards the south and the west, which is to nature, which you can see here. So whereas the room upstairs basically are the result of our desire of being private at times. So the kids want to play on their own, they don't want to be disturbed by the parents. The parents want to have quiet time in the bedroom upstairs. And this is why the space upstairs is much more small scale and boxy, so to speak, meaning cocooned and providing privacy and intimacy. Whereas for the desire to get together, to come, to spend Ohana time, this ground floor is the solution to that. And sort of architecturally, we refer to the two mentors of modernism, out of Lowe's, who was sort of the mentor for the upstairs, where all these smaller rooms gravitate around that larger opening of the staircase that, by the way, is also daylit from above, which is why you can see some light on the stairs in the back. Whereas this ground floor here basically tributes to the wide open plane that architect Mies van der Rohe introduced to architecture, where you have a large space that's basically not subdivided. So you see very few columns here. This is a concrete ceiling here that spans all the way. Got that one column here in the back, otherwise wide open space that the family can actually then sort of play around with, and they can use the furniture as subdividers to organize the space. As of now, you can see the condition that there's this large Ohana table in the middle, and it's actually larger than the family members' needs, so it also is inclusive of another aspect of Ohana being welcoming other Ohanas, welcoming other families, welcoming other people, guests. So this is a welcoming table that basically defines the center of the space here. Also very important in the why is cooking, as not only for nutritional reasons, but also for social, communicational reasons. So you can see the kitchen being not an enclosed space, but an open space. You can see that kitchen block there in the back. So cooking becomes an integral part of socializing here in this space. We're going to turn the camera around to give you a little better idea of the entirety of the space here. We're now turned around 180 degrees. The kitchen is now sort of this way, the other end, which by the way is also positioned where it is because it's towards the northeast corner of the building, where it's the coolest part of the house. And that applies to why as well as here, as in the summer, the kind of heating loads you bring into the building through the kitchen, you want to ventilate out so that the coolest part of the building, which in both climates for the summer, climates and our reaction to are actually the same in Wyatt and in Germany and Europe in temperate climates for the summer. However, the summers are sometimes even a little bit more extreme. It can get hotter here in Germany. But conditions are basically comparable, so also your design moves could be, whereas obviously the winter conditions are way different. Hawaii staying the same way and Germany getting very cold, which leads to wall architecture here with the threshold that we started talking about a couple of times. So what you see this direction here is a little niche as incorporated into the main Ohana space on the ground floor, and by cutting back this covered lanai area sort of spatially and in plan, this kind of niche is created. So the niche is kind of the more comfy area where the lounge chairs are, where the TV is incorporated, where the family plays games, and sort of the open lanai and the enclosed lanai, I would say, this niche sort of are integral elements that work together. The winter is beautiful. When the snow falls, there's lots of glazing here. It's basically gonna really sort of connect inside out and outside in. So even though you're thermally protected, you're still part of the environment. So sort of your body is feeling what's going on outside, which helps you much better with your own kind of system, your health system, in adjusting to the seasons and the climate here. So we can also demonstrate here climatically. You can see this is now midsummer, high noon. You can see that a significant portion of the outside lanai is shaded, whereas the glazing is more flush with the facade. We can once again bring the automated photovoltaic powered shading down. Also, our show also wants to critically post-occupancy evaluate with that evidence-based design certain features. You can see the shading coming down in a little uneven way, so there's something to be adjusted. That's why I always recommend to go with passive systems first, because not only they are free of sort of, you only need an initial investment, but they don't have any maintenance fees and costs involved. Whereas here, as I can see, I guess the company has to come and check. Hopefully it's with a warranty. If it's not, you got to pay. So this is why I always advise to think twice about basically active technologies. But however, principally you can see how it works. Strong combination of a passively shaded element of the facade and an actively shaded element in the back. We'll bring this up again here real quick. And also we talked about surfaces here. This here, the whole building is basically poured in place concrete as we showed upstairs. However, here, due to daylight efficiency, as we talked upstairs, it's intended to be more cozy. So the cement gray surfaces add to the feeling, the perception of intimacy. Whereas here, we decided to plaster the walls and give them a white, high reflective paint, which is actually optimizing and increasing the daylight efficiency. Because this is a space where, besides these few lighting fixtures here that you can see, it's basically daylight fed. So again, another means of saving energy and at the same time optimizing sort of the connection of you as a human being to the outside environment and its synchronization of the two. Other than that, the plaster is directly applied to the concrete and the paint, so the thermal mass capacity and potential of the surrounding walls and ceilings is uncompromised. So again, this space here can store the energy, can store the coolness of the night cooling and flushing the cool air of the night through the building, as well as in the winter time, the sun is going to heat up the air in this space, and that warm air gets stored in the thermal massing of the walls and the ceilings, which are then insulated on the outside so it doesn't lose that heat or coolness. So again, in a very passive way, the tectonics of this building here are supporting the well-being and the human comfort in the building. So we're going to check out another point. I want to spend a couple of minutes of the remaining time talking about the detailing in architecture. So our belief is that once established, overall design idea should be carried through in a very consistent way down to the very, very detail. So from the macro of the overall design to the micro of its materialization in a consistent and linear kind of a way. So here, to demonstrate that theory here by this building element is I'm sitting in front of the stairs, or on the stairs. The stairs are very pragmatically connecting a piece of infrastructure, circulation, connecting the museum wide open space with the more cubicle, boxy, intimate spaces upstairs. How is it doing that? It's doing that with an element of precast concrete here, which is a very durable element because there's a lot of wear and tear. However, we like if the stair over time shows the frequency. So there's certain traces of wear and tear on the stairs that is accepted, that is welcomed. At the same time, again, I have my hand on the stairs, I have a hand on the wall, and it feels wonderfully cool. So this is at the same time, it's a performative, bio-climatic building component. And actually, when it's warmer outside, and even here, the indoor air quality is a little too high for me. I might just do the same what I'm doing here, and resting on the stair, because the stair that has been flushed by the cool night temperature and air that we can flush to the building through a ventilation system that we have here. This stair is going to be way cooler and it's going to be way more comfortable to sit on. So I might as well, in the summer, the Keiki do that, sit on the stairs. What else do we need? We need a guardrail, right? So a guardrail we need due to code, but actually spatially we didn't want it. We wanted to keep the connection between the living space and the circulation space, which also has occupational and bioclimatic quality. So it should have been connected and not disconnected. We could have done that with glass. Glass would have disconnected it acoustically, it would have disconnected it thermally. So to leave this here exposed to the main area in a social, in a thermal way, in a functional way, we incorporated these steel cables. And these steel cables are just tied to the top of the ceiling and to the floor, and they do the job, but they're almost close to being invisible. So I hope this little example helps to understand when I'm talking about the kind of symbiotic synchronicity between the macro and the micro in architecture. So we're going to slowly but surely walk out of the building because showtime nears itself. It's come to an end. So we're going to walk you out. So on our way out, we're stopping here as to one more time demonstrate the design philosophy and the principle of complex simplicity. So what you would see this way here is actually the back of that white backdrop wall of the staircase, which becomes a wardrobe. And so this is the little vestibule space here that once you come into the building, which is on this side here, you come to this very, very large welcoming openings, whereas this is the east facade. This is where we started, this is where we end. And so, even though the facade is closed and pretty opaque for the reasons mentioned, this strategically placed large opening is a very nice welcome gesture that as well is very daylight flushed, because here you come in, you say hi, you say bye, you take off your clothes, you tie the shoes of your children, so there's a functional necessity here for daylit spaces. We try to design the spaces and places we create in as puristic, Spartan way we can, and try to avoid cluttering. So human beings need accessories, they need things, and these things actually bring in sort of the colors into the building. As you can see, this nice little craft work of the children of the Keiki of this house here. But everything else, like coats and clothes, are using and utilizing the known from Japanese culture, the built-in in buildings here. You can see that behind this wall system here is the wardrobe for shoes and clothes here. And once again, this here sort of one last time lets you leave the house the way you have experienced the house all over the place, in being about strategic frame views. So here once again, once you leave the building, which you can see here, you have a pretty nice frame view towards the corner of that old forest that surrounds this building here. But for a reason you're going to find out in a second, we're not going to go out this door, but we're going to go a slightly detour way. So for a strategic reason, we didn't leave the house through the front door, but we leave it through another way that leads us down to what we officially call the basement. The basement, however, doesn't feel like a basement because it brings down the daylight efficiency harvested natural daylight down here, which through the maximization of the windows upstairs and the whitening the walls is sharing that light from upstairs with the rooms as much as these windows here do. So it creates a more utilizable space. There's another potentially guest place here, space. There's a guest room there. There's another place where the family can get together. And if you would be with me with all your senses, you would actually feel another bio-climatic advantage of building a basement like this here, because it's once again utilizing thermal mass. This is concrete construction here again, so thermal mass, and it's feeling significantly cooler down here than upstairs, and it's actually using this thermal mass as to cool the upstairs. So it's something that previous generations in many cultures and climates kind of knew, that a couple meters, feet down below the ground, the temperature is always stable. We use that in active technology systems for geothermal energy, and here we use it in sort of a passive way, in then using this cooler air here for funneling in and bringing it through the building, through the ventilation system, which is not an air conditioning, but I call it an AD, which is air distribution. So it's moving the passively harvested, so when they have the harvested energy and sharing it with the other areas in the room that are not directly fueled by that renewable heating source. So we're going to walk out this way. It's showing me. So from the basement for the people, we get to the basement for the cars. Although there's public transportation here, we're still in the rural area, so yes, this family has cars. But relatively to operation of cars and the most ecological way of operating, this is cold climate, so it gets very cold if you have your car outside. It takes much longer to warm up, puts out more emissions. Engine doesn't last that long, so it makes sense to keep the cars in a basement. The multi-purposeness, double-dutiness of the space is just like the dwelling basement. This is working with thermal mass, both passively and actively, so again, part of this building here, part of the ceiling of this basement is part of the floor of the first floor, which again helps to thermally condition that space, mainly in the winter. A thermal mass works both seasons, so it's something that works in the summer and in the winter. So I'm going to proceed out. I'm going to open the gate for us. And not to waste further time, see you upstairs. So we're going to conclude the tour of the S home on behalf of Isabel Schlüpmann, as it was her wish. Here with this scenery here, which one last time in this show is demonstrating to you our idea and methodology and concept of multi-dutiness, multi-purposeness. When we walked up the ramp of the parking garage, the ceiling consequently being parallel with that inclined and sloped. Up here, once the Keiki are older, will be sort of refurbished, repurposed into a sun lounge deck, because as you see, the sun has disappeared, which happens a lot here. So different than it might have seemed at the beginning. Sun is a scarcity here, so especially soon when the fall comes up. However, also sometimes during the summer, you want to be out and soak up as many of the healthy rays of the sun as you can. So this building element, as being part of the utilitarian parking garage downstairs, will perform as such. So with this here, we will conclude the tour, but we will let you go with another clip of the fest we visited the very first evening when I started my Bavarian time here, which is a Volksfest, so a fest for the people. And after that, I hope it further gives you an idea about our understanding of realizing and recognizing the tradition of innovation and trying to innovate that tradition. So using what drives people here, what moves people, what's their cultural and climatic context, to use it in an innovative rather than a nostalgic way, and prepare for a future that's well rooted in this tradition of this place and the state of Bavaria, and moves on into a progressive future of it. Hope you enjoyed the show, and hope to see you on our next shows. Bye.